Hello guys, welcome to my channel again. The subject of this video is this Suzuki DR-Z400S. When Suzuki introduced this bike, there were three versions in the market. The E, that one is the enduro one. It's not roadworthy. It did not contain turn signals, classical instrument cluster, and so on. It was 50 horsepower. The S, well, I don't know what this means. Let's call it sport. This one, it's street legal, contains lights, the instrument cluster, and whichever is necessary for the street usage. And an SM, a supermoto one, with different front suspension, rear swing arm, and tires and wheels. The SM contains 310mm front brake disc, while the E and the S contain 250. Where 250 is enough for dirt road usage and under normal traffic conditions. But in a case of a heavy braking situation, I would certainly be in trouble. So, the subject is this video to upgrade the front brake to this 310mm front brake disc rotor. First step is to remove the speedometer cable. It needs a classic Phillips head screwdriver, I think the size PH2. That's it. Note the position, because it contains a stopper, so the position of the speedometer is important when you reassemble it. Let's remove, untighten the front axle bolt. For that, leave the front axle pinch bolts tightened. In this case, you don't need to hold the axle itself. And for the bolt, needs a 24mm socket wrench. So let's loosen it. Okay, that's it. Remove the bolt and the washer. Loosen the 4 pinch bolts with a socket wrench size of 12mm. To remove the inner pinch bolts, I need to completely unscrew this one. And that's it. We can remove the axle now. and the front wheel is out. The sound was the spacer on the left side. The brake disc rotor is fixed by 6 pieces of bolts size of 6 millimeters, but it's fixed by a thread lock. So before I try to loosen them, I heat it up a little, because the wheel hub is aluminium, the bolt is steel, and the thermal expansion of the aluminium is bigger than the steel has. So I expect that it helps to loosen the bolts themselves. There are 2 locks for the speedometer gearbox that emerges from the plane of the hub side. So I use a piece of foam to support it, and I put the wheel on it. So now we can loosen the bolts. It needs a 5 millimeter Allen key. So let's start it. Disc is off. To remove the brake calipers, we need to unscrew these 2 bolts. It needs a 12 millimeter socket wrench as well. It also needs to be considered that the 250 mm OEM brake disc thickness is 3 mm, while the 310 is 4. So I need to push the pistons back into the bottom position, and for that I need to remove the pads, and for that I need to unscrew this pinch. It's a tricky one because there's a cover screw, and under that there's the pin head. It needs a 6 mm Allen key to remove it. So I can remove the brake pads now. Before pushing the piston back, I'm gonna clean the inner side and all the dirt parts of the caliper. Use this command tool to push back the pistons. The important for me is not to damage the surface of the piston or the brake caliper. It's plastic covered, so that's good for it. It's nice and easy. In the meantime, you need to check the fluid level in the upper reservoir as not to overflow. for the inner side I need some insert because the mount part, the counter part, is at the same level as the piston surface, so I'm gonna use a plastic washer or something. Okay. Before the installation of the brake disc itself, I also clean the mounting surfaces and the threads. I've also cleaned the bolts, and as for thread lock, I use the medium strength Loctite 243. That's strength and the heat resistance is enough. At least Suzuki has got their own suggestion, their own OEM thread lock, but yeah, if Ducati uses this one for the multistrada, it will certainly do for this brake as well. I would use the permanent one. It's more safe, it's safer, but consider it that to loosen it, you need to heat up the thread itself, and there are rubber oil seals and other parts that would be sensitive for the excessive heat. So let's screw them in. As for the tightening torque, it's an M6 thread, goes into an aluminum wheel hub, so Newton's sixth law. The tightening torque is 10 Newton meter. Before the assembly, I always clean the parts and use new grease for them, except for the brake pads, of course. As for the brake pads, these are almost new. There are maybe 1,000 kilometers in it, so I shall not apply a new pair of one. I use these one. Align the grooves on the speedometer gearbox with the lugs on the wheel hub when you install it. That's in position. When you install the spacer, watch the two sides of it. There's a rim. This is the outer side. And this one goes into the seal. Unless it's not brand new, you can see that the surface here is shiny. So you can position it as well, and the front wheel can go back. During the installation, watch for that there's a stopper on the gearbox, and there is a stopper on the suspension, and the gearbox stopper shall be on the top of the suspension stopper. First, tighten the front axle bolt to a torque of 20 Newton meters. If necessary, you can hold the front axle by using some special tool size of 90 millimeters or a common screw size of 90 millimeters. So let's see it. That's all. Then tighten the pinch bolts to a torque of 18 Newton meters. Use a 1-to-1 pattern until both bolts are tightened to the torque. Okay, and repeat it on the other side. Now, the axle has been fixed. We can tighten the bolt to a final torque of 42 Newton meter. Let's install back the speedometer cable. And let's clean up the grease. Well, we've got the wheel in position, and let's see how this new disc is running. It's nice and even. So we've got front brake disc rotor with 310 millimeters. It's 6 centimeters bigger than the original one. So it's obvious that the brake caliper shall not fit into its original position. We need an adapter. This piece of metal, we reposition the front brake caliper 30 millimeters out. And for fixing it, we use the original brake caliper screws. Why? Because the thickness of the front suspension part, the brake caliper mounting, is bigger than the size of its adapter. So we shall fix the brake caliper with another bolt. As for tread lock, I use the medium strength. Okay, let's install it. When the bolts are in position, tighten them to a torque of 26 Newton meters. Next step is to install the brake pads. Screw in the pinch, it holds them in the position. And tighten it to a torque of 18 Newton meters. As for the dust cap, there's a tightening torque as well. 2.5 Newton meters. That's okay. So let's install the brake caliper. Okay. I use the same medium strength thread lock. I apply the same tightening torque as for the original mount, which is 26 Newton meters. When you're finished, pull the brake several times to put the brake pads into position. And then the final step is to test it on the road. A few last notes for the brake upgrade. Modifying the braking system is always a thin ice, since it's part of a safety relevant system. So, strictly speaking, you cannot do it. In the case you are going to upgrade it, you need to use certified parts for it. So this is the one you need to take care about, and you need to be officially licensed, or whatever we call it. So during the annual inspection in some countries, it needs to be put down in the document that some part of the vehicle has been modified by these parts, and all the materials, all the parts you apply has to have a certificate for that certain country. Otherwise, if you are going to use or you're going to produce the parts by yourself, I'm talking about the adapter I applied, or you're going to make it produced, then it's worth to make a simulation. There are softwares you can use if you know the material. You use the CAD and you program it, you use a simulation for the loads, and in a case it's okay, then you can use it. Or you can use it for your own responsibility if you take it to the traffic. But it's important that in a case you use it in a traffic in the road, something happens and it's turned out to be your responsibility what happened, then you are fucked.